Good morning, viewer. Good morning, listener. It's a fine Monday. Well, no, it's a grayish kind of a Monday morning. Will you agree,
Yeah,
Pat?
yeah,
And
yeah.
that,
There's Jude. Hey, Jude. Just now you mentioned. Well, there. I don't intend to. Hey, I was on social media. Let me put this in context. We were without electricity from about 3 or 4 o'clock on Friday until about 11 or 12 o'clock on Friday night. The wind was still howling here on Saturday at 4 o'clock, and I mean howling. We have trees all around the house, and you sort of go,
yeah.
this weather is, yeah, and all the rest of it. So anyway, I saw on Facebook that somebody said, there's a couple of people coming on about there's no change in the climate; it's the same. Dude, do you realize that this 2024 was the warmest on record? 2023 was the warmest on record. The last 10 years have been the warmest on record. And Jude, look, I am by the way, I'm 72 today.
Oh,
But anyway,
happy birthday, La.
but here's the point. I've lived to 72 years of age, Jude, right? I have
I'd
seen
love to
a
be
clear
72,
change on
but
the
I can't
weather
wait.
patterns, Jude. Anybody that tries it, I have never seen a storm. Jude, at one stage, I would say where I live, it's a wee tiny but exposed. I would think that the ones were hitting about 90 miles an hour at about maybe 5 o'clock on Friday. I have never seen ones like that. I have
Mm.
never seen a storm that lasted a full 24, 28 hours. Usually they last 5 or 6 hours and blow themselves out. So if anybody wants to tell me this is not climate change, oh, by the way, Jude, one person came on and says, I said, have you any scientific background? She says, no, I've got common sense. Jude, if I went to a doctor and I said, have you any medical qualifications? He says, no, I've got common sense. I'd be saying, a few words like the second word would be off.
You go looking for trouble, Pat. You proudly social media and uh,
Uh,
pull your
Jude, I
six
get
gun on
bored very
people.
easily. I have a low board. Jude, I've finished reading Pat Barker's Regeneration, the first part of it. No, she's a trilogy about this
Oh yeah,
First
yeah,
World
yeah.
War.
Aye.
And I watch TV for a wee while, and then I get bored, and I go on social media, and I usually end up having a row with somebody, but it's anyway, it's because it's entertaining.
Well, we're having more people, speaking of that, we're having more people putting messages on here after
Yeah.
it. I don't know, do you see those or do you look at them or
No, you control all that, Dr.
do
Collins,
I
not
should
me.
send some
Which
on.
reminds me as well, Dr. Collins, what about our friend Ben Collins' namesake on
Yes.
Friday? I thought he was quite good.
Oh yeah, yeah, I agree. Just before we do that, I promised the guy I came late, as you know, to Ben Collins's launch on Wednesday, which I
Yeah,
gather it now was launched by Mary McAleese, former president of
yeah,
Ireland.
yeah.
So she was well gone by the time I got there. But there was a chap there called James, and he said I was to give him a shout out. So, James, here's your shout out, James,
Yeah,
James, James. Keep watching. Get five
yeah.
friends at least to get a subscribe button and plonk it, and then they'll be able to see it along with you. Okay, James, I've done it. Right. Sorry, Pat. Back to you.
No, what I was saying, yeah, our friend Ben Collins we
Right.
had him on Friday. Like
Yeah.
I thought, even just we don't need to sort of kick it to death forensically or anything, but I'm talking about Ben Collins, an interesting character, a guy brought up in East Belfast. He said, I think my takeaway from it was he said that during the IRA campaign that Protestants, there's no way that Protestants were going to be coerced into whatever way the IRA
Mm.
wanted to go because of physical force. But now that the dust had settled and there was a sort of a time to, what would you say, Jude, ruminate and look at these things, he said that he had gone on a journey and now he believed in Irish unity. Now, Jude, that is some journey in the sense of from a loyalist East Belfast to believing in Irish unity.
Yeah.
And the other point he made was he said, behind the scenes, the coffee cups, there's a lot of conversation about it.
Mm. Yes, I find that very encouraging. He essentially was saying that many people had views just about the same as his, but they didn't
Yeah.
want to be made public, which is a pity. But at the same time, you can see why they would say that. They weren't
Mm.
going to, get caught up in stuff and be as public as he is. He really has moved very fast. That's his second book about
Yeah.
the unity of Ireland. Uh,
Yeah.
so, it seems to me. I haven't heard of him before. I wonder if he had made that move to a conviction that Ireland would be better united 10 years ago, and over the 10 years then was writing the two books, or was it more sudden than that? We should have asked him, I suppose.
No, I think he did in a way. He said it was a gradual process, if I remember correctly.
But
Correctly,
over how
he
long?
said that.
When did he start?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think we asked him that, but he said it was a gradual process.
Hmm.
He clearly explained that, Jude. He
Yeah.
said that the more he thought about it and all the rest of it, and also the point that the South had changed so much. And Jude, I know a young girl who in Derry who's got a Protestant Unionist background, and talked to her one day, and I said, "What? Why have you changed your view?" She says, "Pat, I went to England." She says, "They just see us all as paddies over there." And she says, "In fact, I thought," she says, "we were treated slightly with contempt."
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
You know,
That's
so
essentially what Ben said as well, wasn't it? That when he went to
exactly. That's why I remembered it. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought very enlightening and very good viewing figures too. Well over a
yeah,
thousand
yeah.
inside a couple of days. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's good news. Have we had anybody else on the horizon for an interview
No,
on?
I must think about it. By the way, it's
Right.
my turn, so I'll do that this time, and I'll come back
Will
to you.
we, you think we'll be able to squeeze it in by Wednesday?
Well, hope so. But anyway,
Okay.
Jude, let's move on. Hey, what's the big
Yes,
story
they
of this
kind of
today?
events. Things have been rolling so fast. You go to bed one
Yeah,
night and they get up in the morning, and my God, you had three presidential candidates, and suddenly they're down to two. Before we talk about
yeah.
that, I presume you watched the Weekend Politics on RTE at 12 o'clock
Oh,
yesterday.
judo! I was doing grandfather duties yesterday. I was looking
Oh,
after a
yeah.
couple of young kids. No, I
Yeah.
saw, but on the news, the bits of it last night
Uh,
on the RTE news. Yeah,
well, I saw my take on it would have been that Gavin was always a bit uneasy in debates. You know,
yeah.
he never seemed quite comfortable. And I think that's because both Heather Humphreys and Catherine
Catherine Connolly.
Connolly both were, they both were sort of saturated with various experience or knew about things in politics. And that you could see how, not just as the sole man on the panel, uh, also as the sole non-politician, he was a wee bit out
Yeah,
of his depth, I thought. Um, I had no doubt that Catherine Connolly is getting stronger and stronger, not just in terms of the people that are, saying they'd vote for her, but in her sort of self-possession. She's got a quiet nature, I think, gentle even, but she's using it even more effectively. I've seen her twice now, and I've been really impressed. Beside her, I think, and maybe you disagree, Heather Humphreys sounds kind of loud and brash, but that might be me wishing that. What was your feeling about?
no, I wouldn't go as far as saying that, but yeah, but there's some Catherine Connolly has comes across as you rightly says that sort of soft Irish lilt.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and speaking as a northerner myself, as are you, some way then when Heather Humphreys comes on, she sort of jars a wee bit, and I
Mm.
don't know why that's so. Because like I'm condemning myself when I make the same point about her. But the other thing is Catherine Connolly, I think, has got that. I think, isn't she? Hasn't she got some sort of medical qualifications? Is she a qualified physiotherapist or
Oh, more than
psychologist or
that,
something?
psychologist, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
and she's a barrister as well, and she's got that. And dude, you're right. I heard someone on this morning and saying Jim Gavin. He One of the things that I think it might have been Niall Collins of a lot of Collinses running around these days. Niall Collins of Fianna Fáil
no
said that
harm.
they should have got somebody with political experience for Fianna Fáil, and he says that was one of the things they were asking for, like Billy Keller. So they brought in Jim Gavin because he's a big name because in Dublin he won five in a row, etc., etc.,
Mm.
etc., for the Dublin GA team.
Yeah,
But Jude, he never looked comfortable.
no.
Even in the debate last Monday night, the late one on Virgin
Yeah,
TV,
yeah.
he was trying really hard, almost too hard, and
Hmm.
you could see that. Whereas Catherine Connolly, because she's been the last can Corla, she's been in politics for a good while. Heather Humphreys as well, very smooth and all the rest of it. So you always knew that Jim was sort of coming from behind. He was trying to catch up all the time.
Well, the figures, I've seen the figures since. I couldn't quote them off the top of my head for that first debate, but they have come in since, and they give Catherine Connolly a very substantial lead over the other two.
Yeah,
I found it interesting as well, and I'd be interested to know if you'd agree with me. Catherine Connolly was sitting in the middle, and on either side of
yeah,
her was Heather and Jim. both attacked her because they
Mm.
knew, that she was winning these debates and they had to do something. I think that that would rebound negatively on them because it looks as
Yeah.
if they were both ganging up on her and bullying her.
Mm.
And she's not, she's not the pugnacious type. So it looked like an innocent victim almost. Would that be
Yeah.
your view or not?
Yeah,
Or
and
am I?
she's got that thing, and as well as that, she's very rational. No, they're trying to hang this thing about her that she employed a woman who had a gun conviction. She was a Garrigy, but as Catherine Connolly rightly pointed out, it was Eamon O'Keefe who gave this woman a reference that the woman had served her time, that she's highly intelligent, that she's put whatever politics behind it. And by the way, if you do believe in rehabilitation and all the rest of it, it's a wee bit shitty to tell you the truth. To start throwing somebody's all up, somebody's put someone behind them. They have
Yeah.
lived a blameless life for 10 or 15 years.
Mhm. Mhm.
That they're making a contribution to society. That they're fully involved in the political process in a democratic way. I think
Mm.
it's despicable.
Yeah, I mean, the same thing applies if you think about it. Our favorite politician, Martin McGuinness, you know,
Yeah, absolutely.
but,
Should have
uh,
would apply that to a hell of a lot of the founding fathers of Fianna Fáil as well.
yeah, yeah. She also has a doctorate, this woman that was employed,
Yeah,
the Erigi woman, a doctorate in
yeah,
Irish, um,
yeah.
which has become a thing in this interview or this election. On Sunday, you missed it, but what's her name? The one that does the interviewing.
I can't. It's not Rachel English. I can't remember her name, and it
No,
doesn't matter.
whatever her name is. Anyway, you
Yeah,
know the
yeah.
one.
I
She
know you're
asked
saying about.
them. She asked them.
Eventually come to me.
They'd been told in advance that they would be asked an Irish question or a question about the president speaking Irish. So she asked it in Irish. The interviewer asked it in Irish first of all, and then said it in English again, and then went to Catherine Connolly. And Catherine Connolly, oh, just beautiful Irish, flowing,
Hmm.
not pushing it, not saying, "Look at me, I'm great. I can
Yeah.
speak so well." Just in a very ordinary, fluent, again, gentle way.
Mhm.
And when they came to Jim and when they came to Heather, both of them had to concede that, oh, yeah, they definitely have to improve their Irish. But you see, that's a little albatross around Heather's neck because Heather promised the same thing, I gather, about 6 years ago when she became Minister for Culture or something. She said she was going to
Yeah.
take Irish lessons, and she didn't.
Yeah. But
It's
see,
a wee.
here's the thing: Joe McHugh was made minister for the Gaeltacht and couldn't speak Irish. But
Hmm.
within about 2 months, Joe could speak Irish. No, I admired him tremendously. He
Yeah.
disappeared for 2 weeks. He went up to the place, Glen Columkill, and immersed himself. And apparently did a couple of very intensive courses every day for a couple of months,
Well, that's
and so
good.
on.
That's
And the
good.
next thing I heard him, he was doing an interview, Ask Ilga on TG Car. So
Mhm.
fair play to
Very
him.
good.
But
Very good.
but Jude, you really have to go for it. You can't sort of do it 10 minutes a day and then say I
Yeah.
am fluent in Irish. It just
Doesn't
doesn't
work.
work like that.
Doesn't work. Plus, most of us, like myself, would have good intentions, of doing
Anyway,
courses
Jude,
or.
let's go back to the main thing.
Yes.
Here's
Yes.
Jim Gavin has resigned this morning or
Ah.
last night. Sorry. There's a whole issue about apparently about 15 years ago that there was he owned a property somewhere in Dublin, and a tenant paid apparently 3,300 over that he never got back. Now, Jude, when you think back at 15 years ago, 3,300 was a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah.
It would
Yeah.
have probably a second-hand car back
Still
then.
is. Still is a fair price.
And when he was asked about it, he said, "No, I'm not having a go here, but I'm making the point." He said he didn't remember it and all the rest. But the thought occurs to me and Fianna Fáil, where was the due diligence? Did nobody say, Jim, look, is there anything out there, no, anything to do with banks or anything to do? No, was or did Jim not that was Jim sort of naive in regard to politics that he thought this wouldn't come up? Jude,
Mm.
let's get this clear. The presidential campaign is the ultimate dirty campaign in Irish politics
Mm.
because it's not about politics, it's about the person.
And they'll turn every stone. Now, first thing I would say is that Jim himself must have known about it. Now, he says he'd sort of forgotten it or he didn't know or he doesn't answer the question when he's asked it. That's ridiculous. You know, I
Yeah.
gather that this guy kept trying to contact him with emails and requests for meetings, and essentially he ignored him.
Mm.
So there's no doubt about it that Jim must have known about that.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you were owing somebody €3,000, Pat, would you not be aware of it?
Oh,
I
geez.
think you
And the
might
other,
be.
do you know, and by the way, I have a certain sympathy for Jim Gavin here. Do you see after this the financial crash, a hell of a lot of people in this country lost investments, lost a whole lot
Yeah,
of stuff,
yeah.
a lot of people, and so on.
Mm,
And apparently, Gavin had he hand back the house and had he paid someone. I would say it was probably quite traumatic. But
mm.
did he not know that if you owe somebody back then 3,500 or 3,300, that during a presidential campaign, that any smear or anything that's outstanding or anything that albatross you got hanging around your neck, it's going to make a reappearance.
Yeah, but in any case, Pat, if you owed somebody owed you 3,000, would you not expect them to pay you?
Yeah,
Especially if you had asked them again and again and again. I think you would,
uh,
and you'd be bloody
uh,
indignant. So I would fault Jim Gavin for not coming clean on that first with Fianna Fáil. I would
yeah.
fault Fianna Fáil secondly, and this is now we're talking about Micheál Martin and Jack Chambers, who ran Jim's campaign, that they didn't say to him, "Look, is there anything in your financial
Is there
background?"
any
Well, that's one of the
skeletons
most
that could
obvious
come out?
things in the
Yeah, yeah,
world to
yeah,
ask, you know.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
another thing about it too, to use that colloquial phrase, I think the shit's going to hit the fan in Fianna Fáil. The blame game is going to start very soon because they didn't run a candidate as far as I remember in the last two elections. In fact, about 20 years and maybe more since Fianna Fáil had a candidate, sort of a dog in the race. But anyway, the thing about it was I heard Billy Kelleher, the Cork MEP, he
yes,
was on one morning and he was really anxious to be able to run for the presidency.
yes,
And he said that, but anyway, get to the point here, Pat. Michael Martin imposed a candidate. It wasn't from the bottom up. The councillors and the party members were not asked to make a decision. Michael Martin and the top brass imposed one without consultation. Dude, I think that rattled a few cages, and I think Michael Martin is damaged by this.
well, I exactly the word I've written here in my notes. I think that Micheál Martin and Jack Chambers, that's
Yeah,
the king of Fianna Fáil and the heir presumptive, because that's who
yeah,
Jack Chambers is being talked about as the next Taoiseach. I think both of them have been wounded fatally. I
yeah.
really do believe that. I think Micheál Martin will be lucky to see out this term of office, as leader of
Yeah,
Fianna
well, I
Fáil.
don't know about that, but Jude, what I do think, see, when
You think
this
they will? You
term,
think they will,
when
Pat? Pat, do you think they will?
Michael, no, well, no, here, his backers, I heard Niall Collins on with Claire Byrne this morning, and
Uh,
it's going to happen. Jude, Micheál Martin saved this party in
he did.
2011. We
There's no
were
doubt about
heading for
that.
the,
Yeah, yeah. But that
yeah,
was then.
yeah,
This is
and
now.
he's brought us back. We're the biggest party in government. We're the biggest party in local government. But he's got enough credit in the bank
Do you think?
politically to survive this.
But
You know,
Pat, not to put too
I
fine
could
a
be
twist on
wrong,
it,
but I think he has.
this is a clusterfuck. It really is. They said
Absolutely.
it was one of the media say it's one of the biggest, not scandals, but biggest disruptive
Yeah,
events that has happened in a presidential election. And by God, there's been a few of those, as we know.
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, I mean, Mayhem, I think the party must be furious with him. And they're going to,
absolutely. Yeah.
as a result, even they forgive him, they're going to find it very hard to get behind him when it comes to
Yeah,
uh,
I think he's damaged big time. And I think when this term is over, I think Michal will ride off into the sunset. Dude, there's no way they can sugarcoat this. This is one almighty, to use your term, clusterfuck.
yeah.
They picked the guy against the will of a lot of the party. No consultation. He goes out on there, and
And then they didn't
Mary and
ask
you were chatting
but
on
Pat,
Friday about this the most boring election. Sorry.
yeah, they, as you say, Micheál Martin picked this guy, and in fact, a lot of the people who are in Fianna Fáil TDs wanted to see Billy, whatever his name is,
Kelleher.
as at least to be considered as a
Yeah,
possibility.
I
But
think
Micheál Martin said
29%,
no, no
29,
way.
29 TDs like voted for Keller.
Yeah,
Now, whatever, I can't remember how many others voted some other way.
yeah.
So, like, there was considerable support for Keller,
Yeah.
and
So I
I'm
think
open to
both
correction on that. Yeah,
in terms of choice of Jim
yeah,
Gavin, and also in terms of what they asked him before he was, put out in the public, They're both terribly much to blame.
Yeah,
And I almost feel sorry for Jim Gavin, except that he should have told them. Even he didn't ask him, he should have told them. He must have known it. Uh, this is the thing they're warned against. If you've got anything in the closet, you'd better tell us now, because once you go
yeah,
out into the public arena, they're going to find it out. Um,
yeah.
the question now, Pat, I think, is will the Fianna Fáilers now vote for the blue shirts? Will
You
they?
see, that's hey, dude, funny. We had myself and my dear missus had a conversation last night. A friend of hers suggested this was good news for Catherine Conley. I don't know what it is because I heard one of the guys on this morning said, "Oh no, I'll just somebody switch my vote to Heather Humphreys. I want somebody who's very pro-European, like the Fianna Fáil party, etc., etc., etc." And Catherine Conley is very sort of lukewarm about certain things in regard to Europe and so on. Now, the other side of the story is maybe a lot of people are so pissed off at the big parties. They just say, look, Catherine Conley's an intelligent, nice woman who's very sort of controlled and very sort of whatever, whatever. Like, I think most middle of the road people will probably vote for Catherine Conley, but the party people will vote for probably Heather Humphreys. So it's going
Well,
to be
you see,
it's like sort of trying to guide mice at the crossroads right now about where the votes are going to go.
yeah, it's difficult to tell. I'd be pretty
Yeah,
optimistic about Catherine Connolly getting a fair lump of them because
yeah,
it's not as if Heather Humphreys was as clean as a whistle. She is part of the government, which over the last 10 years has made a total rocks of house building. And
yeah,
she said on Sunday, she said, I understand the desire of people to want to own their own house. Come on. It's not, we're not asking you whether you would agree that it's something that people want. The question is, what were you doing in government and what are you doing in cabinet when you allowed this to drift on, go on? And then she said that we put so much money into housing. Yes, but you haven't fixed it. And what people
yeah,
want is fixed housing situation, not to be told loads of public money went into schemes that clearly didn't deliver it. So
yeah.
I wouldn't say Heather's out of the woods and clear. I think, and this is probably my prejudice, but I think that as a speaker and as a politician and as even a figurehead of a president, Catherine Connolly is so obviously intelligent, quietly fluent, and a Gael Gore.
Yeah.
Heather Humphreys is not quiet. She's not a Gaeilgeoir, and she has one or two problems, like that thing about being part of the government, which made such a mess of things in terms of housing and with some other things. And there's also this question of wasn't there something or somebody's very annoyed with her because there was a fatal crash of some kind, and they were trying to bring it to the attention of the public. Now,
I
maybe
didn't know that one's gone over my
well,
head. I'm
it
not
was
sure.
mentioned in some form now, and I think the
Uh,
suggestion was, I'm only saying this out of vague memory of it, but that Heather hadn't responded as the family would have wanted her to.
yeah.
That's my memory of it now. That's an allegation. I wouldn't say want to stand over it, but I'm pretty certain there is such a case. The details of it might be different, but it's there as well. So it's not as if the person with the problem is Catherine Connolly. Catherine Connolly,
Uh, uh,
really, her,
when you've been in politics as long as Heather has, and you've been a minister, you're going to leave a trail. There's obviously going to be people who have got things against you. So I presume there would be family that she didn't maybe respond in the way they had hoped, or she made a decision they didn't like. So there's always that. There's always a legacy from good and bad. What does they say, Jude? All political careers end in failure. I'm not so sure that's 100% true, but most do.
Michael
And
D's,
but
Michael D's lasted
Michael
after.
D certainly didn't. Uh,
Yeah.
so anyway, but Julie, moving on slightly, the budget's tomorrow, and I wrote down something. Uh,
Pat, before you do, can I just ask you one question? You can give me a one or two word answer. If you were asked that you could go and have a chat over a glass of wine or a pint of beer or whatever with Heather Humphreys or with Catherine Connolly, which would you choose?
we'll go for Heather Humphreys, Jude.
Would you?
and not
I
for the reason
wouldn't.
that you think.
Well,
No, but
you
here's the point of where I'd go. Heather, she was a credit union manager somewhere in Monaghan.
yeah.
And what do you call it? And I remember the day she was made a first minister, or first made a minister. She said she was sitting waiting, and somebody says, "Hey, Andy Kenny wants to speak to you," and she said she thought, "Why does he want to speak to me for?" She said, and it wasn't modesty. She hadn't a clue. But Anda obviously said, right, she's from the border county, she's a Protestant, and that's all the things that Fine Gael love,
That's
and
sectarianism,
and so on.
That's
And
sectarianism.
exactly up to, hey Jude, for a woman who maybe was in the Orange Order and her husband was in marched in the Orange Order,
Mm.
I would love to know how. And I hear her on saying she's totally in favour of Irish unity and all the rest. So I'd like to sit down and say, what was it like growing up in a border county? How did you become a minister? And what do you find? You
Mm.
know, like Catherine Conley, I understand because I would think I am pretty much like Catherine Conley. It's and I don't mean this the way it sounds. It's the other experience on this island that I would like to talk to.
Well, you have a good point in that she is a Protestant from the border counties and she is totally in support, she says, of a United Ireland. But see, that just might be the party line. And the party line in Fine
Well,
Gael
it's not going
and
to one
Fianna
or
Fáil.
any of your friends in our own community, Jude, is it?
Hmm?
It's
Sorry,
not going to
Pat?
one or too much support in our own community.
Yes, that's the point. This idea that she's a Protestant and she's a happy Republican and she's a minister in the cabinet and she may be president of Ireland, that'd be a great thing for people such as Ben Collins.
Ben Collins,
Would
yeah.
there be more Ben Collinses coming out of the woodwork? I don't think they would. I don't think they would. I think there's a movement
I'm not
on.
sure about that, Jude.
Oh, Pat, I think those
Know
people are going to
someone.
come out anyway. I
But
think they're going to
actions
come out.
speaks louder than words, dude. See if somebody like Heather Humphreys was, and I'm just throwing this out there,
Mhm.
was elected. They're showing it. Hey, this place is a very different place from what it was. No, I think Ben Collins. I said to Ben on Friday, I said the changes in the south make a lot of difference. He says, yeah. Do you remember the old one, home rule is Rome rule and all
Oh
that
yeah,
crap?
yeah, yeah.
And the
That's
Catholic
been
Church
ancient.
was running the state, and it
Mm-hmm.
was all the rules were being made by
Mm-hmm.
Archbishop McQuaid.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that is the Republic of Ireland is way more liberal
Ah,
than, in fact, than the UK, for want of a better term. And
yes.
by the way, the other thing as well, let's get this clear: if Nigel Farage becomes the next prime minister, you can nearly bet your life he's going to throw away a referendum in Northern Ireland just to use the term, fuck everybody up, because he doesn't care about Scotland. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't care about Wales, and he certainly doesn't care about Northern Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
He's an English nationalist.
Mm-hmm. But you see, Pat, you said that the South now is a very changed place, and
It
that point
is.
has come out. This idea of well, Ben talked about it a good bit about the
Yeah,
priest-ridden, to use the cliche, South,
yeah,
and now this liberal state that exists.
yeah,
But everybody knows that. Every unionist in the North knows that. They
yeah.
don't need Heather Humphreys to become president to be made aware of that. Plus, of course, there's been at least one or two Protestant presidents way back to in the dawn of time. So I
Douglas
think this
Hyde
thing
and
about a Protestant, I didn't when she was a minister, I didn't tend to think of her Protestantism. I
well, neither
tended to
did I.
think of the
No,
way she came across and the things she was advocating.
yeah. I never, I'm dead right, Jude. But here's the point: the presidency is a different role. I couldn't give a monkeys when she was a Fine Gael minister. That was, but I did. The president is the first citizen of Ireland. And there's a wee bit of symbolism. And I'm not batting for Heather Humphreys here, but you asked the question, so I'm answering it. The thing about it is, Heather Humphreys is a Protestant from a border county. And I think symbolically, there a lot of people in Northern Ireland would look at that and say, oh, that's pretty good. No, by the way, I think two of the first four or five presidents we had were Protestants.
Mm.
Erskine Childers was one, and Douglas Hyde was the other. And so but if you're talking about, by the way, how many Catholics were Prime Minister of Northern Ireland between 1921 and 1974?
Yeah.
But anyway,
Well,
and then they talked about a Rome rule state,
mm,
But anyway,
mm.
so no, Jude, I'm just saying on symbolism terms. I personally, I think Catherine Connolly has been easily the best candidate by some considerable distance, I've listened to 3 or 4 debates, and it's not just personal prejudice. She's won the debates. Everybody's saying that she's won it hands down.
Mm.
I've seen even people on blue shirts, it's
Yeah.
on,
Mm.
to use that pejorative term, on social media, said she won it hands down. So, but having said that, I can see why a lot of people will be voting for Heather Humphreys.
Well, I think they'll vote for Heather Humphreys. But if they're voting it for Heather Humphreys in order to change moods in the North, to get to convert, the soft unionists towards the notion of a united Ireland, I think they will be disappointed. I don't think that will do it. I recall Trevor Ringland when he was discussing a GAA and the fact that the Protestant population didn't partake of the GAA. And I said to him, if it was on a broadcast, I said if they changed the flag or didn't have the flag flying, if they didn't sing "Our on the Vein," would that encourage Unionists or Protestants to play or become spectators even? And his answer to that was, well, it would be a start. Now, that's what I think will be the best you could hope for in terms of Heather Humphreys' Protestantism. Now, I'm not
Yeah.
talking about other qualities, I'm talking about Protestantism. I don't think it would really make much of a difference to, there'd be people in the North,
I'm not
Unionists in the
saying it
North,
would
who
make a
say, yeah, it's
massive
good,
difference,
but so,
but
so what?
but Jude, hold on, Doctor Collins. All journeys start with the first step. No, nobody's saying it's no massive or anything else, but
Yeah, that's true, true. Maybe you're right and maybe you're wrong, but look, Pat, if I agreed with you, we'd both be wrong. So I'll just hold my position, you hold yours.
right,
Okay,
right.
let's move to the
So,
last. I got a couple of other items here quickly. Got him down with a cold or cough or something. An article in the Irish Times here says only 4% of learner drivers who were disqualified since 2023 have handed in their licenses. Only 4% of these people are obeying the law.
yeah,
What the hell's going on? Why is that?
Jude, something? I was chatting to a friend of mine quite recently, and a friend of ours, we know he's from, I'll just say he's from way down sort of South Donegal, that towards Sligo. And we know that he was disqualified. But here's the thing: it's every time we met him, he's still driving his car. He was still, and I presume he never disclosed that to the insurance company. He never disclosed it to his employer because he would have lost his job. I'm pretty certain because he
Mm-hmm.
does a lot of traveling.
Mm-hmm.
So when you sent me that thing about only 4% hand on their license, that strikes me as probably right, because that there was my wee anecdotal or empirical bit of evidence. I asked how we'll just call him Jimmy because that's not his name. How did Jimmy hold on to his job? And my friend says to me, I haven't a clue. He says, like he was. He said he was caught drink driving quite a while ago. But anyway, bottom line of it all is he must have driven through his disqualification, didn't hand in his license, and
Yeah.
so on. I presume that's what's happened, Jude. I'm not certain,
Oh, well,
but unless you got
he
having a
would be
technicality that we didn't know about.
he would
What?
be conforming to the mass because the figures
Yeah.
are
So
that
it'd be conforming to 96% of the people.
yeah, in 2023, 2006 learners were banned from driving, but only 80 of them, 3.9%,
4%.
surrendered their permits.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that kind of admires that brashness, but on the other hand, like if you're going to have laws that aren't going to be observed, I say that's ridiculous. You're only discrediting the notion of law keeping in general by having a law that doesn't make sense. Um,
Yeah.
a quick last point, Pat. What about the fact that the cost of living, now I'm not talking about housing, I'm talking about the cost of living, looks like it's having a hard time. And we're told that this budget that's going to come out tomorrow or whenever is going to be a tight one. It's going to be lean and mean. But,
Uh,
people are paying more now, this article says, for their mortgages each month than they were, like it was 1,100 a month on average in 2021, and now it's 1,600 on top of
yeah.
that. Um,
Mm.
and the consumer price index is saying 5.1% every year. And this is the highest level of food price inflation that has been recorded since God knows when. People are going to
Jude,
find it
we
pretty.
know all about housing. Now, here's the thing. Last week, an 800-gram loaf of Brennan's bread cost €2.09, which is 22 cents more than 22. Instant coffee. Nescafe was up £6 or €6.50. Wait for this one, Jude. It's what was it? It's €14 now,
Offer.
up from 6.50.
14!
Aye, 14
14
euros.
for one, for
And a
one.
200-gram jar that we were able to buy back has shrunk to 190. Eggs that cost €2.09 last year are now costing, or sorry, were costing 159.
Pat,
That
we're nearly
coffee
out of
one, Jude,
time.
has
We're
nearly
nearly out of
double
time.
priced.
We're nearly out of time. I'm just thinking that's not a very good advertisement for United Ireland. It's a fact, but they need to do something about it. I think that what is it? The crows are coming back to roost on top of Mihaw's head. Okay, we'll
Yeah.
talk again,
On
Pat.
that note,
Might even have
all
a
the best,
guest.
Jude.
We might even have a guest between now and Friday. Maybe.
And I will
Okay.
see
All
what
the
we can
best.
do.